I heard there was a secret chord that Denethor played and it pleased the Lord. Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be the Mouth of Sauron. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all manner of strange and unusual and fantastical literature that I have found in my march towards the Black Gates of Mordor. So welcome back to my Lord of the Rings read-along series. We've made quite a bit of progress and we have reached book 3. Technically, we reached... We have reached Return of the King, but the specific book is book 5, which is The War of the Ring, which is the actual title that Tolkien wanted to use before his publisher made him just cram it into 3 books. So this book is interesting in that it focuses primarily on Aragorn and Gandalf, as well as Pippin and Merry. Like, they get much more of a focus here than in previous books, which I think is good. It helps mesh out their characters and flesh out their characters, and really liven the book and add more personality to it, I think. So that's good. There's quite a bit going on. And once again, we do not find ourselves learning what happened to Frodo or Samwise, because in the last book, Samwise and Frodo were marching to Mount Doom when they were betrayed by Gollum, Shelob, and Samwise managed to kill Shelob, but Frodo was paralyzed by the spider venom. And so a bunch of orcs took him into Tirith Ungol, the giant tower, and the one that's not Sauron's tower. So that's what's happening there. But what's going on in this specific book? That is a good question. And let's start off with some summary, and then we'll get to analysis. I have quite a bit to say about this specific book, and so here we go. The book starts off with Gandalf and Pippin riding through Gondor as they were doing at the end of book 3. They had just come off the Battle of Helm's Deep, as well as Isengard, where the Ents destroyed Isengard. Saruman is still locked in his tower, and they're making their way to Minas Tirith, which is a fairly large city in Gondor, and everywhere around them, people are preparing for war. They keep referring to Gandalf, and they will do it a lot through this book, as Mithrandir, which is just another one of his names that he goes by. Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White, Mithrandir. He has a bunch of them because he is very old, thousands of years old. So yeah, Gandalf and Pippin arrive in Minas Tirith. Gandalf tells Pippin not to mention Aragorn because Lord Denethor II, who is the ruler of Minas Tirith, doesn't want, he wants to maintain his power, and Gandalf kind of knows that he's a little paranoid that Aragorn is going to show up and take it from him. Lord Denethor, when they meet him, he kind of seems broken. He is Boromir and Faramir's father. Boromir is dead, and Denethor knows that. And Faramir is off fighting Sauron's forces, so he could die at any moment because of how powerful Sauron's army is. And there's a sense of doom in the air that Denethor is expressing. Gandalf wants to remain positive, but Denethor is just nope, it looks like we're all gonna die. It's gonna be very sad. So not only does Gandalf have to fight off the Sauron's forces, but he also has to deal with this sense of doom, this guy who is not positive at all, who might be spreading that lack of positivity to the citizens. Meanwhile, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Merry are riding with Theoden across Rohan, trying their best to gather forces and make sure that they have everything they need to defeat Sauron. which they probably need a lot because dangerous dude. Theoden actually makes Merry an esquire, which is pretty cool because that makes him like an actual like part of the Fellowship rather than a comedic side character, in my opinion. Aragorn reveals at this time that he accessed the Palantir that Saruman it was Wormtongue threw it down, but like it was Saruman's Palantir. So he accessed it and like he stared down Sauron and like showed him Isildur's Bane, which is the sword that Isildur had, and he used to eventually like cut off the ring from Sauron's hand. And he stared him down and like until like he felt his will being drained. So he was just like, nope, gotta shut that off, which I think is amazing. Like it shows, one, that Aragorn is willing to challenge Sauron, but two, it shows that he's strong, but like there's a very human side of him because, one, arrogance. Aragorn's arrogance, but two, like his will was being drained. So like it might be the case that he's not powerful enough to face Sauron on the battlefield. And what does that mean? Like that, like, is anyone powerful enough to face Sauron alone on the battlefield? Maybe Gandalf, but like the Balrog defeated him, and I'm sure Sauron's stronger than the Balrog. Aragorn also has a conversation with Lady Eowyn, who is Theoden's daughter. She wants to join in the fight because she believes that she's competent, but because she's a lady and Eodus, Theoden's realm, like she's always been made to stay at the castle, and she can't have a larger role because of those constricting gender norms in Middle Earth. Aragorn also discourages her, which I don't like about him. He's just like, oh, just stay at the castle so that we have someone like who can care for the people and take care of them. And Eowyn properly responds like, if I do that and you lose, then I'm just going to be in a burning castle when Sauron comes. I want to be on the front lines. And he just discourages her, and I think that's a weak moment for Tolkien right there. Aragorn also goes to the Paths of the Dead as recommended by the elves, and the Paths of the Dead is a road that leads to like a sort of ridged area, a cavern sort of thing, where the mountain men who promised to be on Isildur's side but actually didn't show up to the fight, that's where all of them are. They're after they're dead. So Aragorn goes them to recruit them for the war, so you can have an army of the dead, which is always nice, and so that they can fulfill their oath. And once they fulfill their oath, they can go to heaven or wherever it is that people go in Middle Earth after they're dead. So more troops for Aragorn, which is always nice. Around this same time, Faramir arrives. He talks about Frodo and how he saw him a couple days ago and sent him on his way. Merry, Pippin, and all of them are kind of shocked that he was said to be traveling with Gollum because Gollum wants the ring, and that doesn't sound very, very safe. So it really seems like Frodo was in the wrong for trying to tame Smeagol Gollum. But what can you do about that right now? Eventually, Faramir gets back to the castle, and he talks with his father Denethor, the second Denethor, who basically chastises him for not being anything like Boromir. Like in front of Gandalf and company, he's just like, I didn't love you as much as Boromir. Now that Boromir's dead, I'm very sad about that, and we don't have the ring, and I think we're gonna lose the fight. You can try to fight all you want, but you'll never be quite like your brother, which must be really hard to hear for Faramir. I said before that I thought Faramir was a failed son who was unnecessary to the story, but Denethor's presence kind of justifies Boromir and Faramir, and I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean then in the analysis section, but I think I like those characters a lot more now. And it's really sad that Denethor is this way to his children, especially during these dark times. Battles take place outside the city walls. Denethor sends troops, and the troops manage to hold their own pretty well, but they're quickly overtaken by the swarming orcs and elephants and weird ass creatures that are swarming from Mordor at this point. And in an interesting moment, like the sky, as these animals are pouring in, like the sky turns dark, almost as if like the darkness is spreading from Mordor, and like everything, like the darkness is slowly encroaching upon Middle Earth. So yeah, Faramir ends up getting gravely wounded in his fight against the Nazgul and the orcs and everything like that. And they bring Faramir back into the city, and the city becomes surrounded at this point, with clearly like not a lot of hope for the people within it. Gandalf has to assume power because Denethor is far gone by this point. He's really sad about his children being gravely wounded and possibly almost dying. So, like, someone's got to lead, and it's not going to be Denethor. The walls become broken down in the around the outer edges of the city, so not near the inner city. But the orcs are climbing in, but Theoden arrives, so that there are reinforcements at this point, and he begins fighting the Nazgul and the orcs and the south men and the men from the east, and so there is some help to be found in this situation. And there's a battle on Pelennor Fields, which I believe is just right outside of Minas Tirith. I might not be 100% right about that. The Lord of the Nazgul, whose name I am forgetting, the big ringwraith dude, I'll put it right there. I've forgotten his name already. Yeah, he starts slaughtering all of Theoden's troops, and even mortally wounding Theoden, who is dying. And he's like, "No man can slay me. I am the head cheese here. I am a big deal." And one of the troops is like, "Ha ha ha! I am no man." And they take off their helmet and they reveal themselves to be Eowyn. Surprise! And with the help of Merry, she's able to slay the King Ringwraith man, whose name I keep forgetting, and I'll remember it, I promise. But yeah, so she manages to do it, although she gets heavily wounded. It's thought that she might not survive, but they eventually are able to give her medical attention, which is always nice. And then Aragorn arrives and manages to either kill or scare off the rest of the troops. And that battle is won for Gondor at that time. So yeah, I meant to say Witch King. I know the term Witch King. I remembered the term Witch King. But at this time, they make their way back into the city and they discover Pippin calls for Gandalf and is like, "Denethor is acting very strangely. I think he's going to do something to hurt himself or Faramir, who is still alive at this point." And Denethor reveals that like he's going to set himself ablaze on the funeral pyre because the war is lost for them, he believes at least. And it's better to go out like this than to just let Sauron kill them or enslave them, which would be pretty scary. But Gandalf manages to save Faramir, but in his like crazed emotional state, like they revealed that Denethor looked into a palantir that he had to keep an eye on Aragorn and like his various enemies, but Sauron knew that he was using it, so he kind of manipulated Denethor into like becoming paranoid about losing his children and losing his throne, and so like that caused him to slowly deteriorate. Also showing the power that Sauron has. He doesn't need to lift a finger. He only has to show you what you may lose. Which I guess makes him a pretty unique villain in a lot of ways. There's eventually a debate, a council held by all the commanders, and Gimli talks about another battle that they fought where they captured the enemy fleet at Pellagur. I don't remember that being in the movie, and it's kind of an aside, like a lot of instances where characters talk about a battle that happened, or some other event that happened, like Gandalf talks when Saruman betrayed him, like it's just something that happened, and rather than showing us, Tolkien's telling us. But you know, if he showed us everything, this book would be 3,000 pages long. The commanders at this point choose to assault the Black Gates. You got to take the fight to Sauron, and this will be their last stand for a free Middle Earth. The Black Gates open, and the Mouth of Sauron, one of my new favorite characters, he just comes out and he starts trash talking Aragorn. He calls him a nerd, and he's like, "Oh, I guess anybody can wield an elven blade. Like, that doesn't make you a leader of this battle. Like, and you don't even have enough troops to begin with. We're clearly going to defeat you, and you are all idiots for even signing up for this battle." But he does talk about Sauron's terms, such as going further west and giving Sauron a bunch of land, and like you'd be kind of like territories of Sauron, but he would allow you to live free as long as you allowed him to claim the land that you had, which is pretty nice of Sauron. But like, it's Sauron, so you know he's not going to honor any agreement that's made. Like, he's gonna keep fighting you until he's enslaved everybody. Possibly across all of the planet that Middle Earth is on. And the Witch King also shows tokens from Frodo and Sam, Frodo's mithril vest and some of Sam's stuff, which suggests that Sauron has Frodo and Sam, that their mission failed. Now, is that true? Are they dead? Are they captured? We don't know. It could all be a trick on the Mouth of Sauron's part. And then finally, the book ends with the battle beginning. They couldn't come to an agreement, so the fight starts, and then a troll falls on Pippin, and we're left to wonder what's going to happen with Pippin there. What's going to happen with the battle? Are they going to even win? That's a good question to ask, because I don't know, and I think it's going to end very poorly if Frodo and Sam are actually dead or captured. So we shall see. As I mentioned before, there's a lot to talk about with this story, because it's an excellent story. Like, there's just one problem with it, which I'll note in a few moments. But like, I really enjoyed the doom and the feeling that this battle was going to be hard to win. Like, Tolkien's not giving it to you easy. It's going to be a hard fought battle, and people might die, and people have died. So you're sacrificing a lot to get a free Middle Earth and get rid of this evil presence in Sauron and the Ring. One thing that really stood out to me was the tragedy of Denethor II and his children. When we first meet one of the children of Denethor, Boromir, I thought he was just like a terrible dude who seemed unnecessary and was dragging down the story because he was obsessed with the ring. But I also like that because it showed the power of the ring and how it could possibly help Boromir and his people, so that they weren't subjected to the terrors of Sauron if he had the ring or something like that. And then you also meet Faramir, who is also pretty desperate for a solution, and he's fighting the hordes of enemies near the western edge of Mordor. So, like, it's a struggle for him as well. But then you meet Denethor, and you kind of understand where that desperation is coming from, because Denethor is at a very low point. He's desperate. Like, he doesn't know if Minas Tirith is going to survive. He doesn't know if he's going to survive, and he just learned that Boromir died, and like, everything is going as far south as possible for him. And then you learn that he's been accessing the Palantir, and like, that changed Saruman for the worse, because like, he became so obsessed with the ring afterwards, and eventually it was revealed that like Saruman was willing to betray Sauron, but like, the ring still changed him, and like, he still wanted to enslave much of Middle Earth so that he could have the power. But the Palantir changed him, and the Palantir changed Denethor by making him more paranoid and more obsessed with the fact that Aragorn might betray him. And like, he asked a lot of questions about how Boromir died, possibly because maybe he thought Aragorn had a part to play in it, because he either didn't save him fast enough or he led him to his death. So I do think that's interesting, and like, how the Denethor like line is a real tragedy. Like, Faramir, it looks like he's going to be on the mend, and like maybe things will be great for him. But he still lost his brother, and he still lost his father, who tried to kill him in the process. And so I really enjoyed reading that, and I think I don't think that those characters are useless anymore. I do think they're fail sons, and I do think, as Lucas from Lit has pointed out to me, Denethor is a fail father. And if you would allow me real quick to read a section from this book to illustrate Denethor's mood at this point. Faramir says, for a moment Faramir's restraint gave way. I would ask you, my father, to remember why it was I, not he, was an Ithilien. On one occasion at least your counsel has prevailed, not long ago. It was the lord of the city that gave the errand to him. Stir not the bitterness in the cup that I have mixed for myself, said Denethor. Have I not tasted it how many nights upon my tongue, foreboding that worse yet lay in the dregs? As now indeed I find, would it were not so, would that this thing had come to me? And so, yeah, what you're getting there is that Denethor is impossibly sad at this point. And, like, he's regretting all the things that happened. And it's probably not helping that he's using Palantir. I also like the growing darkness and the tension that you have before the war. Everyone's on edge. And, like, as the enemies start coming out, you get a dawnless day where, like, the night sky is completely dark. I don't know how that happens. But it's pretty interesting. And, like, it shows Sauron's forces getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and like the task before Middle Earth, the task before Gondor is impossibly large, and you have to wonder, are they going to be able to defeat all this evil that is amassing? Who knows? You saw that evil amassing even more in Frodo's story in the previous book, because like Frodo had to hide from all these forces that were marching on by. So it's a lot, and I like how this book kind of builds upon the previous book in that way. I like how you also see Aragorn's ascension to king status. Like, that started when Gandalf died in the Fellowship of the Ring. How Aragorn had to take responsibility for the Fellowship and start leading everybody. And then you see that even more in Helm's Deep, where he pretty much commands the various armies that are being sieged in Helm's Deep, and you see that even more here as he's working his way to gathering all the armies. So he's becoming more of a king, and I guess that's why it's called the Return of the King, because Isildur's heir has shown up and is ready to defeat the forces of Sauron, and possibly even Sauron himself. One issue with the story is that it does have slow momentum. In the previous books, like in book 3, like you have Helm's Deep and you have the Battle of Isengard, and that ramps things up, and then you have Frodo marching through Mordor, which is tense and is really good, and I love that story. But then at the beginning of this story, like, everything slows down, and you are building that tension, and I do like that. But it does have a way of sapping the momentum of the story, and like you just lose some of the enthusiasm you had for it. I don't see a way Tolkien could have avoided that unless he just started the battles immediately. But then you risk losing that growing tension and the fear that everyone else feels. So it's a minor issue, but it is an issue nonetheless. And so with that, like, we reached the end of book 5, The War of the Ring. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the story. There were some parts where it got slow or like a little muddled, but I think that Tolkien held up, and like he created a fascinating story about a sense of doom and gloom surrounding Mordor as the forces of evil march forth and lay waste to the landscape. Causing Aragorn and company to have to rise to the occasion and fight off all the evil dudes. I would have liked more Gimli and Legolas, but they have a minor role in this story. I can't wait to read the next story in the saga, book 6, which is The Return of the King. I wonder what's going to happen with Frodo and Samwise. Really looking forward to that. If you have something to say about this book or want to tell me all the ways that I am wrong about The Lord of the Rings, feel free to comment below. I would love to hear from you and have a discussion about this. Otherwise, you can like, share, and subscribe so that we may share this read-along with other people who might be reading The Lord of the Rings for the first time, or may simply just, want to read it again. Until then, I wish you the best of times in your weird travels all across of Mordor. Farewell.